and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives and events. Today's guest is Bill Collins, the owner of Center Square Grill. And here's your host, Mary Genowin Kaplan.
Thank you, Ed. And also welcome Jeff Teagan, who's here as our podcast committee member, but especially Bill. So good to see you today.
So great to see you, and thank you so much for having me here today.
Sure thing.
This is it. You are an important part of our town. And I will say for our listeners, those of us who are local, sometimes referred as CSG.
Well, I'm glad you're in the loop on that
Yeah.
because, we kind of quickly scaled that down to CSG in the beginning, and it's finally stuck. People are coming in saying CSG. Center Grill is how people were referring to it, but now it's CSG. I like it.
CSG, for the locals.
Absolutely.
The locals. So tell us, Bill, where are you from? How did you get here?
Oh, it's a long story. How long do we have?
We
have a
have
couple
lunch
hours?
delivered, and soon it'll be fine.
All right. So, I grew up on Long Island, and I moved here, I would say, roughly about 25 years ago. And, the short version is I was working for corporate restaurants at the time and had transferred up to make a little more money up here as a manager, but with a little lower expense. And I realized quickly that the corporate end of things was not really for me. Although great training, I didn't really have passion for the product. And I was lucky enough to meet a guy named Claudio up in Northampton who actually opened Spoleto in East Longmeadow here. And I worked with him for 16 years. And I learned a tremendous amount from him. I consider him to be my mentor. And for me, a mentor is an important person. You learn a lot of what to do, but you also see the things that you would do differently. And so I was lucky enough to kind of be his shadow, and I feel like that's the most important education I ever got. And so when the time was right, I was able to transition and buy East Longmeadow down here, and I just always felt like this was a diamond in the rough. I felt like the concept didn't really hit right in the beginning, and it wasn't, for me, tremendous rocket science. I looked around and it's like Italian, Chinese. Let's do Creative American, try something a little different here, right? And it opened up, and we have been so unbelievably blessed and lucky to be a part of this community. And 10 years later, May 5th, we'll have been here a decade. I'm getting the chills just saying it. And I just can't believe it. It's been the most wonderful, in all honesty, the most wonderful experience of my life.
I am so glad you told that story because I remember that news story, Spoleto's employees purchase,
Right.
and it was kind of cool. And
Yeah.
10 years later, it's still a great story.
Well, it's been the biggest change in my life. Going from an employee to an owner was a really cool transition, really scary transition. You really realize that if I don't do a good job here, I'm in big trouble. And 10 years looking back now, I've got 2 kids. I've got a wonderful wife. We're so fortunate to have the life we have due to the wonderful success of the restaurant and our great customers. But, it's certainly been a roller coaster ride along the way, but I couldn't be happier still being here. I hope I have another 10 years in me.
Oh, that's great. Sounds wonderful.
So where on Long Island?
Bayshore.
Oh,
Bayshore.
And so kind of like if you were to put a pin right in the middle of Long Island, but on the South Shore, that's where I grew up. And so that's been my biggest thing missing here is the water.
South Farmingdale.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Jones Beach. I miss it.
We could be related.
Who knows?
we'll take a break for a short Long Island reunion. That's the best part about Western Mass. There are connections everywhere.
There really are. Yeah, I'm fortunate to meet so many people every single week. I always told my wife through COVID, I was like, I'm never getting sick because I'm in the business of shaking 2,700 hands a week. I'm like, I've got the best immune system in the world. If my family goes down, the kids get sick, my wife gets sick, I'm like, don't worry, I'll cook, I'll get the soup. I'm not getting sick. Dad's all right.
Ooh, and you can do a good job with that.
I like to think so. What's been a cool transition for me now is when I'm doing these cooking videos on Facebook. Now my kids want to get in, and now because they're 6 and 7 and they love to cook, they love to help. And thankfully, they've been blessed with the tall gene from my wife. And, my son now is like 6 and, 4'2", I think, or 4'4". And, he doesn't even need the step stool anymore to be working around the kitchen. But it's so cool to see them kind of want to mirror image what I'm doing. And so, they're starting to get onto Facebook in the videos.
So we can
with
see
me.
them in the videos?
And you know what I find? Is forget about me. They get way more views and likes when they're in the videos. I'm like, this is marketing 101. Put a kid in every video and it's going to get watched.
That was very clever of you to give birth, to be a parent to cute children. Excellent idea.
I've been a lucky guy. I misspoke when I said that opening this restaurant was the best experience of my life. Becoming a dad has really been the best experience of my life. Opening the restaurant until becoming a dad was, the most unbelievably euphoric experience to have something that hit and was successful. But I got to tell you, once you meet your kids, as you all probably know, life then changes forever. And it's coaching a team and, just the day-to-day stuff. It's awesome.
And 6 and 7 are great ages.
It's unbelievable. Right now, I'm a rock star. I'm the coolest person in the entire world. I feel like I've got a clock that's running out of time, though. Pretty soon, it's going to be like, Dad, get out of here. My daughter today didn't want to hold my hand to the front door of school.
You'll be replaying those videos and weeping.
Nice.
I remember
I am
the
already.
days. Yeah.
We were talking at breakfast today about picking strawberries, and my daughter is like, a strawberry junkie. And so we go picking strawberries all the time. And I just remember this picture of her I have with this little cap on, sitting in the middle of a field, and red strawberry juice, all over her face. And, it's just like these little memories, it all happens so fast. It goes by quickly.
And you're working on a couple of themes here because family is so important and so fulfilling in one's life, but food and eating, they brings us all together.
It's always been my superpower. Whenever I have get-togethers, I've always been the person that wanted to handle the food. And for me, it gave me that feeling to nourish other people was always so fulfilling for me. And so with the restaurant, that's been just unreal. And now I'm working on a new TV show called The Food Explorer, which has given me the opportunity to go out and see what other chefs are doing and, do a little bit of traveling and see some different culture. And, the common theme, the common thread in culture is food and how it makes you feel and how it brings people together. And to be a restaurant owner that can sit in the back corner of the restaurant some nights and watch people from a distance smiling, laughing, looking at a picture and crying together about somebody they lost, having an anniversary dinner and just falling in love again in that little booth that you created. That to me is a gift that's unbelievable to be able to give to people. It really is cool.
What makes me smile is that fork that comes across the table to grab. I want to try some of that, please.
You might get your hand slapped if you're coming to my plate.
Go fast.
So how did the TV show come about?
Believe it or not, before we started this podcast today, we were mentioning somebody, Grace Barone, the executive director of the chamber, and wonderful lady, and has done a wonderful job with our chamber here. And Grace kind of had this vision of putting me and another chamber member together, Tony Colapietro, who owns Stonegate Studios over in Wilbraham. Great guy. And, we met a couple of times. We actually met the first time I went in and did the podcast for the East of the River Chamber. And then, Tony and I really hit it off right away. There was an energy there. And we had a couple of follow-up conversations, and he told me a couple of thoughts he had about producing a television show that incorporated some food and travel. And I got to tell you, it seemed like 5 minutes later, here we are. We're live with cameras in Boston filming. We've got a whole production schedule. And now I'm actually co-hosting the Feast of the East. This year I'm not competing. I'm actually co-hosting as the Food Explorer. And we're going to be creating some hype videos and interviewing chefs and presenting trophies at the end. And so it's exciting to shift into a different role and try something new.
For those that don't know about the Feast of the East, give a little explanation. It's a kind of a cook-off or
It's a cooking
recipe
competition
off, yeah.
that basically supports the Chamber of Commerce. It's a well-supported event. If you haven't gone, it's worth going. It really is the best of the best. The area's best restaurants all bring out their best stuff. They set up booths around in Great Horse, which is, again, just a special place to visit as well. You know, if you're not a member, just going up there for an event is beautiful. The vista is magical. And this really, for me, kicks off spring. You know, you go up and you've got all the food vendors, you've got different breweries there, you've got confections. My friends at Trey Olive, who, if you haven't had on, they're worth having on. Wonderful guys. They're there doing an olive oil tasting. And it really is the area's best culinarians getting together for a charitable event that I think is just so awesome. You know, everybody comes and they compete, and it's a friendly rivalry, you know. Yeah. I've unfortunately gotten my butt kicked the last couple of years. I had a couple of years where I won, and you know, but it's never a bad feeling, because for me, walking out, like last year, Paul Roberge from La Cucina won, and he did a wonderful job. They kicked butt and they deserved the win, and it was nice, you know. My buddy from Jackalope won one year, who happened to be my old head chef from years ago, and
it was your mentorship that led him to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew and I have finally agreed on that. Obviously, Andrew, if you're listening, sorry, buddy, but you know that's the truth. No, I'm just kidding. No, Andrew's a very talented guy and a wonderful chef, and he did a great job.
So when does this take place?
So this takes place in April every year. I believe this year it's April 30th. I'm almost 90% sure, but don't crucify me if I'm wrong here. But
I think there'll be info in the reminder and a few other, and on Facebook. And
yeah, and you can go to the Chamber ERC5 Facebook page, and it's right there. There's a ton of information about where to get tickets and such. But wonderful event. Highly recommend you go if you can, and see yours truly strutting around talking to a couple different chefs, talking food.
So when does your TV show launch?
So we're going to be launching in late summer. We're in full production right now. We're averaging a couple days a week that we're producing. We're very excited. On the 26th and 27th this month, we're actually going to be at the old top of the hub, which is now called View Boston. And so we're going to be up there filming, and we're going to be filming in a couple different capacities. We're going to be talking to one of the directors of The View. We're going to be filming, walking around, and actually experiencing The View, which starts off in an elevator that as you go all the way up to the top, it's a whole immersive experience that actually looks like you're on an elevator on the outside of the building instead of inside the building. So really neat concept, and you can see Fenway Park, and it's just it's going to be a pleasure to be there. And then the following day we go to the Envoy, and I'm getting finally to meet somebody that's got a couple of my bucket list items knocked off her list. Her name is Tatiana Rosana, and she's the executive chef of Pata Maria and the Envoy in total. Lookout Rooftop, and she's competed on Chopped twice. She's competed against Beat Bobby Flay on TV, and she's written a children's book. And so for me, competing against Bobby Flay would be a bucket list item, and I've always felt like since I've had kids and began reading to them, I would love to write a kid's book, especially about the restaurant business. So it would be fun.
In your free time.
In my free time.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
So over the 10 years, you've had some challenges.
There's been a couple. Yeah. There's been a couple. I've been kept on my toes. The most recent big challenge was our sprinkler issue, which happened. And, you know, like any entrepreneur, you know, when you're faced with adversity, you're faced with a challenge, you know, right away you roll up your sleeves and say, no problem, I got this under control. I'm going to have it dealt with immediately. We're going to be open in 5 days, you know. And so that's what I said, you know, as 15,000 gallons of water is pouring into my restaurant.
I can't even imagine what that would look like. That's a lot of water.
You know, you can't imagine what the emotion looks like, right? Because at first, I'm a do-it kind of guy. I'm like, no problem, I got this under control. You know what? We just got to shift gears. We're not serving food for 5 days. We're mopping, we're drying, we're cleaning, we're getting back to work. then you start talking to the professionals and they're like, well, water's worse than fire, because there's mold, rugs pop up, wood warps, and it turns out all of my electrical, it all happened on the first floor. So everything in between the first floor and the second floor had to be replaced electrical wise. And so it turned into a 6-week ordeal. And I got to tell you, so my high of saying, we got this, immediately went into a low of, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not going to be in touch with the public for 6 weeks. It's like the groundhog came out again. I thought the groundhog went away after COVID, no more interruptions here. And, but every experience I've had with adversity has given me the ability to rise up to another level. And I truly believe as an entrepreneur, if you can't take your negatives, navigate through them as successfully as you can and turn them into a positive somehow, you should think about working for somebody else. You need to be able to take these punches and you need to be able to turn them into what's going to make you stronger in the end. And I truly feel that through COVID and being shut down into, the sprinkler loss, every step of the way that we've taken a punch, it's given us the opportunity to maybe have to, heal that wound a little bit, but to say, okay, we're going to turn this into a positive. And that's what we did. And we unfortunately had to have a battle with the insurance company to make it all right. But that battle, it could have been easier. We could have not paid our employees and I would have gotten a check in 2 days and we'd have been done. But at the time, and still, every employee is a valuable asset. So much training goes into an employee, right? And there's so many layers that people don't even realize on taxes you pay that go away after the employee has hit certain numbers. And so, being able to keep your employees is such an important part of business. Retention is like one of the number one items you have to work with. And when I thought about 75 people that are skilled and trained by me.
For you. They're yours.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you can't let them drift away.
The second they get comfortable somewhere else, I've lost them. Mm-hmm. And so I thought to myself, listen, I don't care about the carpets. I don't care about the booths. We got to find a way to pay the people. That was my number one concern with the insurance. And we took a risk because there was some gray area. And fortunately, with being established at that point, I couldn't imagine if that happened in year one, I would have been out of business, right? Mm-hmm. But, I looked at my wife and I said, honey, we've got to double down here. And we actually took some money from retirement to fund the downtime and pay the employees. And we said, we got to do this because I believe in the end, we're going to be able to get it back. I'm getting the chills one more time because, you just don't.
Me too.
You don't know how it feels until you're sitting in the seat because it was like one of the biggest gambles I ever made. It's, 75 people for 6 weeks. And I didn't pay the wait staff the $6 an hour, the $6.75 an hour. I paid them their average tips over that period of time from the previous year. And so we're talking a lot of money. And so I said, babe, please have my back. We got to do this. And of course, as she has every step of the way, she did. And when we talked to the insurance company, I remember being on a conference call with my agent, with my adjuster, and I remember starting to get the inkling that they were trying to say that they weren't going to cover the tipped employees. And I said, look, you're going to write that check just like I wrote that check. I've been a great insured customer for the last 10 years. And the good news is I don't need the money today. So if you want to fight me for the long haul, get ready because I will see you in court and I'm going to see this through the end and I'm getting paid because that's what insurance is for. And, I've never had to use it. I hope to never have to use it again, but I paid insurance. I have the right coverages. I paid for those coverages. I've paid my people and I'm getting paid back. And if you don't, I'm taking you to task. And oh my God, I got that off my chest. And 2 days later, I got a phone call and they said they're going to pay the bill. And I was like,
Yay.
I was acting a little tougher than I actually am, you know. It was over the phone. It wasn't in person. So I was like, you know, it was, you know, but I'm glad that I did it. You know, I'm in insurance jail right now. So I'm getting raked over the coals. Like I'm paying 3 times what I would normally pay. But again, you know, we retained every employee except 5. And so it worked. You know, the chance, it was a win. And, you know, I look back now and I think to myself, imagine had I have let them all go, right? 6 weeks later, the restaurant's rebuilt. I could never train 75 people in 6 weeks to be able to be at the caliber that they're at, right? And so I'm so thankful that we luckily, in some ways blindly, made the right decisions. You know, and so it turned out, listen, the adversity has turned out to be a win. And it's taught me a lot about life, mental toughness, taking chances, and
Maybe listening to your gut.
Yeah.
And that's half of it. Like you couldn't always articulate why, but you knew it was the right thing to do.
You're absolutely right. And it's funny you mention that because, you know, I often, I feel like my gut's smarter than my brain, you know?
Some days there's no question with me, so. Yeah.
I'm like cerebral sometimes, looking at things, analyzing, I'm like come up wrong. If I just followed my instant reaction, I would have been like, okay, great, you know, here we go. But, you know, I think there is something to be said for once in a while trusting your gut and taking that chance. And, you know, I would have had a lot of, I'd be working a 3rd job right now to make up to my wife for taking that chance if it had gone wrong. But thankfully it went right, and we're so fortunate every day. You know, business came back, and you know, we're still there, standing strong 10 years later.
So what's the difference between CSG today versus CSG 10 years ago?
I was just going to ask that same question.
Well, Ed's a photographer, so if he had a picture 10 years ago and then today, what?
It's you know, I want to, if you don't mind, I want to answer that question in 3 parts. I want to talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow, if that's cool. So yesterday was just an awesome experience, you know, almost recklessly so. I'm buying a restaurant. I don't have any money. How am I going to do this? So I got a commitment to buy it, right? And so many pieces had to fall into place in order to buy this place. You know, I was 34 years old. I had been working.
Your baby.
Yeah, I'd been working for Claudio, like I said, for 16 years. So at that point, almost half of my life, right? And so for me, I saw this opportunity, and I said to myself, somehow you got to figure this out. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I had $17,000, and the purchase price of that restaurant was $600,000. So it wasn't much ground to cover, right? So what I immediately started doing was going through the numbers, and I had made these great vendor relationships over the 16 years of working with Claudio. I was very, very close with the ownership of the complex in East Longmeadow, and with the help of a tremendous amount of people. And I often say that if I never met Frank Fitzgerald, I would not be in business. And I truly feel strongly that if I never met that man, I would not be in business. And I don't think I'm the only person that has that story. And I'll tell you, he would be a good person to interview because, and he does not wear it on his sleeve, but there are a tremendous amount of people in this community and the surrounding communities that would not have had the ability to rise to the occasion because there wouldn't have been the chance. And he took a chance on me. He really did. And
now he is
a partner at the complex. He also owns Fitzgerald Attorney at Law. But if you were to look into what he's involved in, I would say he's involved in a little bit of something everywhere. You know, he's a wildly successful guy who is so grounded and down to earth. And, you know, I wish I could spend more time with him. He's one of those people that, like, man, I just wish I could do a 6-month intensive just following him around. And because anybody who's doing a deal wants Frank involved. You know, he's just that kind of guy. He always gets the deal done. And he's just a wonderful person. So we started out and we had nothing. I remember, I was spending the end of my measly amount of money I had left on painting the place. And I was trying to convince myself, we don't need paint. This paint's fine. It's chipped, it's dirty, it's dusty. We're going to be just fine. But, we painted the place. My mom was kind enough to buy me some pictures for the walls, which I had
that's
nothing.
nice.
And my mom is a rock, and she's an amazing woman. And again, just another person that stepped up in this moment. And, I had a business partner when I opened, Mike Sakey, wonderful, wonderful guy. He's now like a top realtor. There's been so many evolutions of this business, but Mike and I started out two wild and crazy guys having a good time. Neither of us married. I had Julia, but it was like business was always first. Julia was along the way with me. Julia was there, dusting, tables, dusting the fans. Julia had my back from.
And Julia's your wife?
My wife, yeah.
The Glamorous Life with Bill Collins.
Yeah.
You can dust.
It was not glamorous at all. It's still not glamorous, but she's had my back since I've had zero. And you've got to respect a woman that continues to show up for you every step of the way and helps you get going. So that was where we started. And at the time, I had, no chef. Okay. And I was thinking to myself, to pull this off the right way, I need to like kind of like mix it up. I got to do something different here. I don't want to have a chef that's been the chef here and there and fall into the comfort zone of what everybody else has been doing for the last 10 years. Let's shake it up a little bit. So I put some ads out, and at this time you were putting ads on like Craigslist. Indeed wasn't even a thing. And I was putting ads in like Washington, D.C., New York City, offering a very small relocation package. I remember when I interviewed.
We'll drive up and load your luggage into my trunk.
Pretty much. And and by the way, hopefully after you like the job, you can pay me back the gas money. But, I remember, we did a lot of phone interviews, and I'd found this one guy that he was out there. He was a unique individual, but I just had a gut feeling, and I hired him. And his name was J.D. Fearman. And we're still in touch today. He's got his own thing going on up in Maine now. He's got a business called Pioneer Valley Charcuterie Team, which he started here, but now he lives up in his Booth Bay Harbor, which he loves. And, so he really challenged me to go outside of my comfort zone a little bit with some of the menu items. Like, I probably wasn't going to have a duck confit. I probably, I was trying to keep it a little more like classic. Let's not ruffle anybody's feathers. And he's like, no, man, we're gonna spice this up a bit. And, we started a dry age program right out of the gate. And, so he challenged me to maybe, stretch my culinary muscles a little bit, which we did. And I'm so thankful that we had our time together. It was not as long as I had envisioned based on paying for some relocation. But, we were together for 6 months. It was a great 6-month run. And, it just really got me off the ground. And what was unique was in the wings, I had this guy waiting, Andrew Brow, who's the owner of Jackalope and Highbrow up in Northampton, who was on my line. And I had worked with him for years with Claudio. He worked for Claudio. And I had seen something in Andrew when he was 16 years old that I just knew there was a superstar in there. It just was like needed a little shine, and so I had him waiting in the wings, and that's when I gave him the shot to enter the ring as the chef. And we had a lot of deep talks, but I said, listen, man, this is my life. We're no longer working for somebody else. You screw up, I got problems because, I got a lot of bills here. I got to pay off the purchase price. I got to keep food coming in this place. We got payroll. I didn't take a payroll check for the first 6 months we were open. I was living on my Capital One credit card, swiping it, hoping it was going to work for gas, And Andrew did a great job, and he rose to the occasion. And then, Andrew started evolving into his own person, which is what I love to see. right? Because that's what I did. And so if that's not happening around me, if I'm not mentoring, if people aren't evolving and going after their passions and their dreams, maybe I'm doing something wrong as the president of the company, right? And so Andrew went on, and I actually partnered with him on his first location. Since I've let him, not let him, but I've been bought out, which was all a positive thing. For me, it was never about collecting a check from him. It was about getting him across the finish line to his final dream, and so now in the wings was waiting man Freddie Carballo, who had been with me at this point now for probably about 6 or 7 years, and Freddie just had it, man. Another superstar that just needed that shine, and Freddie was on Expo every night, and he was like the guy, I need 2 steaks, medium rare right now. Fry guy, send those fries back. They're soggy. I need new fries. And he was just like this exciting guy to watch. He was El Capitan. He was in command of that line. And, when I came up and I said, Freddie, I need this now. I need it now. If a guy wasn't putting it out, he walked around that line with his heavy stomp and got it in a pan and got it out to me. And he has been the backbone of that kitchen, honestly, for since we've opened, but he's been at the helm now for, I think, around 7, 8 years. And Freddie, it's another beautiful thing to watch, where mentorship turns into something where I sit back like a proud father, almost like a proud brother, and I watch these guys blossom into this amazing person and making good business decisions, and watch their work ethic just grow and evolve. And it's like, as an owner, it's like the coolest experience to see, to see people really come into their own and take some of the things they like from me, leave some of the things they don't like, and come into their own operator. It's a pleasure to watch. And so Freddie and I are actually partnering on the Big E this year, which we've had a footprint at the Big E for years at the farmers market, but we're actually taking over the Crazy Burger building, which is right by the Better Living Center, right on the main strut when you walk in from Gate 9. It's a wonderful location, and they've been doing burgers on donuts for years there. That's not what we're doing. We are actually in the middle of a renovation in that building, and we're actually the right-hand corner, which was like not utilized at all. I'm building actually a bar counter around it, and we're gonna have a raw bar right there with people shucking fresh oysters. We're gonna have shrimp by the pound, cocktail shrimp, and then on the other side, we're actually doing a really fun New Orleans style concept called Nola Kitchen and Bar. And so we're gonna have like chicken etouffee and crawfish tails, kind of like a little ode to Chef Wayne's Big Mamu, but at the Big E. And we're really trying to create an elevated experience at the Big E, if you will. One that will not. We don't want to be another sausage and pepper place.
I was thinking fried pickles.
Yeah, they sound delicious, right? But it's funny. So I've been doing the Big E now as the chef of the farmers market, which is a blast. I'm on a microphone for 4 hours a day. I'm cracking jokes, I'm making people laugh. I'm trying to help with the sales of the place, but I'm cooking a recipe all day and feeding people. And my passion for doing this comes from the farms around the area, because really I'm hired by the agriculture department to talk about local farming within New England. And it's just so wonderful to be able to give those people a voice for those 17 days at a fair that's based on agriculture. Everybody bases the fair now on beer and food, right? It's nice to kind of represent why the Big E came to fruition in the first place, and to be able to share some of the passion of shopping local and supporting local, and what a dollar spent in the local economy means versus a dollar spent in the grand corporate economy. And so it's an interesting job, and I'm still going to maintain that job. That's my number one priority. And so Freddie and I have now partnered on this. So Freddie is now becoming an owner of a restaurant, and I hope that leads to further ambition to do so with me, because I love the guy. You know, I really do. He's become a brother, and it's a wonderful thing to see all these different steps. So that's where we were. Where are we today, right? Today, I feel like we are, at a position where we've been for 10 years, one of the busiest places in Western Massachusetts, a really successful, solely owned restaurant, right? And so we have no real desires to necessarily open a sister restaurant to Center Square Grill. What we're planning on doing is within this year and hopefully launching for our 10-year anniversary, we're hoping to change it up a little bit. I haven't changed the menu format in 10 years. It's been like these beautiful books, and it's kind of looked the same, but there's been different menu items. We're looking to freshen it up. We freshened up the interior after the sprinkler. Now it's time to kind of freshen the direction up a little bit, because if you let it get stagnant, it's going to get stagnant, right? And so we have some tricks up our sleeves, and we're getting ready to in May really step out with a little bit of a new feel from service to menu to bar service. And
This May?
Yeah.
Coming right around the corner.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, we got to do something on Cinco de Mayo other than drink margaritas. So that's our
Possibly,
anniversary,
yes.
right? So
And why is that?
well, that would keep it stagnant. If I was just sitting in the bar drinking margaritas and not working, I would not be changing anything. So it's time to roll the sleeves up a little bit and do a little overhaul on our 10-year and freshen things up.
Nice.
and make it, not make it, but keep it special, and make sure that the next generation of people that are coming in to work with us at Center Square Grill share the same opening passion that we had 10 years ago, because it's a different generation. The kids today are different than the kids 10 years ago, and understanding the idea of being a yes restaurant and to putting service first, it drives me crazy when you walk into a business and the answer is no. Yeah. Why am I here? The answer should be yes. If I don't have Heineken and there's a Heineken enthusiast, I'm getting a couple bottles of Heineken for that person. I don't care if I got to drive to the gas station. I hope the ABCC isn't listening. But it's like it's one of those things where it's like you have to put your customer first. They're our lifeline, right? And it's such an important thing to instill in training. And so that's our next big meeting at Center Square, because there's a new generation of people working with us. It's after 10 years, there's not a lot of the originals left, and it's time to really work on molding that next generation into the understanding of becoming a yes restaurant. We will do anything we can to achieve what our customers' desire is, within reason. Mm-hmm. But I think that level of service truly sets you apart from your competition. And that is, I think, at the core of what creates a good dining experience. And for me, that if you can just live by that, I'm going to go above and beyond to the point that these people can't leave upset. Even if something went wrong, because let's face it, there's human error. My grill guy is not going to cook a steak right 100% of the time. If he did, you should be worried. It's probably like being cooked in some kind of contraption that wasn't done by a human. It's like it's not going to be
robotics,
right? It's not going to be perfect every time. And that's people, diners, the public, they need to understand that it's human error. Where it's our job to fix it is how do we manage through that human error? Because we're not going to get it right every time, right? But did we make it right in the end? And that, I think, is where we should be working so hard every day, is to make sure that we work our hardest to make it right on what we did. But if we mess up, we got to make it right for the person before they leave, one way or another, And there's a very small percentage of people that you can't make it right for, no matter what. It's minuscule. There are those people, but a reasonable person should be able to be, happy with a restaurant when they get it wrong once in a while, you know? And so, but it's an interesting new age for us, being 10 years old. You know, most restaurants fail, you know, by 2 or 3. I was hoping it would be great if I could get to a point where I actually made a paycheck for a couple of years, you know, and then who knows what happens.
What a low bar you had. You didn't even know.
Well, the restaurant business is a tough business.
It is.
You know, to come out of this paid off would have just been a great story in itself, right? And now to be here 10 years later thinking about what's next is pretty cool.
So if someone listening to this does not know where or doesn't know anything about Center Square Grill, the location of Center Square Grill and what your menu is like and
Sure.
what, just briefly.
Let me give it to you. We're at 84 Center Square in East Longmeadow. We're right at the world's most dangerous rotary that everybody talks about. I don't think it's a dangerous rotary. I just follow the signs. But, you know, if you follow the signs, you'll be all right. But the good news is if you come in on 83, which you pass the senior center where we are today, you don't even have to go into that rotary. You just take the right into the Rockies parking lot where Starbucks is, and you'll find us right down at the corner. Beautiful outdoor patio, beautiful interior. We always have a nice chef's garden going on outside. We've got great bartenders on the inside, wonderful fresh menu. In fact, in season, a lot of our produce comes locally. We're down at Meadowbrook Farms a couple times a week, picking up our loads of tomatoes right here in East Longmeadow. Best tomatoes on earth. If you haven't had them, make sure you make it down there. But you can find us on the web at centersquaregrill.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know, there's probably a young person making a TikTok for me out there somewhere. I have no idea. Probably, though. And so that's where you can find us. The restaurant is a creative American restaurant. And the reason why I chose to go in that direction is because that pretty much means you can make whatever you want to make and nobody can give you anything back for it, right? If I want to have a dish that has an Asian inspiration, good. It's creative American. If I want to have a dish that has a Cajun flair, good. Creative American, you know? And so, but, you know, we really have a great focus on steak, seafood, and pasta. And, you know, we buy a lot of our beef, believe it or not, locally at this point. I've got steers that are being raised in Belchertown, Wagyu steers at Austin Brothers Farm. And so it's a phenomenal process raising your own steer. I have 4 on right now. And it's a really, really neat process. But it really forces you to use every bit of the steer. And so, you know, from the bones to oxtail to the wonderful steaks to the tongue, every bit is used. And so it's I like that. And especially like, you know, the burgers from one animal. It's not like this tube of meat that you get from God knows where. It's like locally raised. I'm supporting another local business. Fantastic. And it's great beef. So, you know, we've got great steak, seafood, pasta. Another local guy, Steve from Ludlow. His business is called Los Pescadores. He's a fishmonger, goes to Boston for us and buys our fish locally in the Boston market. And so it's really cool. You know, I mean, getting to know these local people and working with them is a really special process.
How exciting. That's, I think, the flip side of Western Mass being small town. We do have a limited number of places we can dine, but new things are just so exciting. It keeps people moving and they're anxious to come back again and try something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we try to do wine dinners and really, you know, do fun events too that maybe take you past where we would normally be in our culinary, you know, experience at CSG because, you know, you can't do the prefix dinner every night. And so it's really fun. Sometimes we book that front room and we'll Freddie and I'll dive into like cookbooks, right? From, you know, the French Laundry or, you know, one of my old favorite cookbooks is the old Babbo cookbook from New York City. I love some of their pasta dishes. I think they're still so relevant. But yeah, it's really a fun thing to be able to kind of wear a different mask that day of the week and do a special dining event.
I cannot thank you enough for coming and sharing this with us.
Well, thank you.
I would say I'm exhausted, but I'm actually just hungry right now, so I understand.
Next time I'll bring food.
Great. Any parting words? Just like a call to action.
Listen, thank you all for the support over the years. Please continue to support your local business, not just mine, all of them. You know, when you choose to dine out, there's a lot of great options owned by local people where the money stays local and the money they make goes back into the community through charitable events. So please do your best. You know, when I dine out, I'm trying to go to the Federal Guys places, Posto over there. I can't wait to go to the new Lola. You know, it's like, it's such a nice thing to be able to support local and you know, keep it all coming back around.
Important message.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. Would like to thank our guest, Bill Collins, the owner of the Center Square Grill. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube and on Spotify. If you have a story you'd like to share on the program, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Erin Kobler by stopping by the Pleasant View Senior Center, by calling Erin at 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or send her an email at erin.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time at Stories from the View.